My name is Helena Valenza, I'm 38 years old and on March 22nd I died in the supermarket. It sounds crazy, right? But that's exactly what happened. I was just an ordinary mother, trying to survive yet another Tuesday in Campinas. I worked part-time at a dental clinic, earning just enough to keep up with the bills. I had 2 children, Marina, 12 years old, and Pedrino, who had just turned 7. My husband, Daniel, worked in construction and the money was never enough. There was always a little bit left to make ends meet. That day, after work, I went to the supermarket to buy some things for dinner. I remember thinking about how I was going to make 5 chicken fillets stretch to 4 people. I grabbed the cart, went straight to the fruit aisle, and when I reached out to grab a bag of apples, I felt an absurd pressure in my chest, as if a truck had run over me. I heard someone shout, "Call an ambulance." And then everything went dark, but blacking out wasn't the end. It was like falling asleep and waking up at the same instant. 1 second before, I was lying on the cold floor of the market, and the next I was looking at myself down there. I saw my body thrown on the floor, my bag open, my cell phone fallen, the apples rolling under the shelves. A woman in a lab coat was massaging my chest while another spoke desperately on the phone, and there I was, floating, seeing everything calm as I had never been in my life. It seemed like I was watching a movie about some random premiere. I tried to tell them that everything was okay, that I was there, but no words came out, no sound. Suddenly, I felt a gentle movement, as if a current of warm water was pulling me. It wasn't exactly flying, it was more like gliding. The air became thick, warm, golden, and everything around me began to become clearer and clearer, until the light took over everything. But it wasn't a light that hurt my eyes, it was a living, soft light, as if it were embracing me. And then I heard footsteps. There was no ground, but I still heard slow, firm footsteps coming towards me. For a second, I thought I was going to get scared, but it was the opposite. A great peace invaded me as if I were 5 years old again and heard my mother coming to see if I was sleeping. And then I saw him come out of that light as if he were part of it. At that same moment I knew who it was, Jesus, but he was nothing like in the images of the church. He was tall, maybe about 1.85 m, darkened skin, deep brown eyes, the kind of gaze that carries all the stories of the world. His hair was a little past his shoulders, thick, wavy, the color of dark coffee. He wore a simple white tunic that seemed to shine from the inside out, and it wasn't his appearance that made me stop, but his presence. Everything around became quiet. It was as if someone had lowered the volume of the universe. Not even thoughts made a sound. The light that came from him was soft, constant, like a candle flame that never goes out. When he smiled, I felt something I had never felt before, absolute security, like that certainty that nothing bad can reach you. If I had ground, my legs would have weakened. "Helena," he said, and his voice was like warm honey, neither loud nor deep, simply perfect. "I was waiting for you." I tried to answer, but I could only say Jesus, and I started to cry, but it wasn't a cry of sadness, it was of a joy so pure it hurt because it was so good, like when Pedrino took his first steps or when Daniel asked me to marry him on the park bench where we met. He extended his hand. He had a small scar right in the center of his palm. When I saw that, I understood, it was really him, it was real. "I want to show you something," he said. I took his hand and everything changed. Suddenly, we were in a green field that seemed to come from a dream. The grass shone with a shade of green I had never seen on earth. Flowers of all colors danced with the wind, and there were colors I didn't even know existed. Purple, more purple than any purple, gold that made gold seem dull. "This is heaven," Jesus said smiling, "and I want to show you what you really do here." The first thing he showed me left me speechless. Suddenly, we were in an immense garden, bigger than any park I'd ever seen. But the plants weren't growing haphazardly, there were people taking care of them, people of all ages, with simple clothes and hands dirty with soil, smiling as if it were the best thing in the world. "Here you will be gardeners," Jesus said, "but not like on earth. Here it's pleasure, not work. Every seed planted becomes something more beautiful than you imagine. Every flower you cultivate sings back. I looked at a white-haired gentleman planting what seemed to be sunflower seeds, but in a few seconds they sprouted and turned into golden flowers that sang a soft melody, like a choir of angels in a low voice. The man laughed, a child's laugh, and planted another, and his spine. Jesus? I asked, laughing, won't it hurt? He smiled. Here, the body is perfect, strong, young, never tired. Suddenly, the scenery changed. Now we were inside a building made of something that looked like crystal and gold at the same time. The walls pulsed as if they were alive, and inside there were people creating things, painting, sculpting, writing, composing. You will also be artists, he explained. Each person has creativity within them. Here it is unleashed. You will paint with colors that don't exist on Earth. You will create music, stories, sculptures, and everything they make will spread joy. I saw a woman painting on a huge canvas, without a brush, only with her hands. The paints flowed from her fingers like liquid lights that moved and danced even after she stopped touching. When she stepped back, the painting showed a landscape so real that it made you want to enter it. I was never good at art, I confessed, somewhat shyly. Jesus looked at me and answered, on Earth you are limited by an imperfect world. Here your hands create what the heart sees. And again the scene changed. Now I was in a gigantic library, but there were no books, only spheres of light floating on the shelves. People touched them and in the next instant their faces lit up with understanding. Here you will be apprentices, he said. Everything you want to know you will learn, every doubt, every mystery, everything will be revealed. Like the stars are born, because love heals, like the wind finds its way, and knowledge will not only be remembered, it will be a part of you. Without thinking, I touched one of those spheres. In that same instant I understood how butterflies know where to fly when they migrate, but not as a fact. I felt it. I felt the wind on my wings, the sun guiding, the earth's magnetic field vibrating like music. It was like living inside the answer. It's the perfect learning, he said, smiling, without fear of making mistakes, without haste, without ego, only truth. And before I could exhale properly, we were already in another place. Now it seemed like a mixture of cathedral and stadium, immense, with a ceiling so high that it disappeared in the light, and the sound, the sound, the music came from everything, from the walls, from the air, from the people. Thousands of voices and instruments created a sound that made any music on earth seem like a whisper. Here you will be musicians, Jesus said. Every voice is perfect, every note is part of the eternal song, and it never ends and never tires. It is the sound of love in the form of melody. On earth I was always terribly ashamed to sing. My voice faltered in the high notes, and in church I only pretended to sing. But there, when I opened my mouth, a pure, clean, strong sound came out. It was my voice, but perfect, and it mingled with the other voices, as if it had always been part of it. I'm singing beautifully, I shouted, laughing and crying at the same time. You always sang, Helena, you just couldn't hear properly because of the noise of the world. When I realized it, we were in a huge square, full of people laughing, hugging, talking. You could feel the love in the air, almost like a perfume. Here you will be true friends, Jesus explained, without jealousy, without competition, without fear. You will meet people from all eras, from all places. You will recognize each other as they knew each other forever. I saw a girl running and hugging an elderly man. They didn't need to say anything. It was clear they were family, and even without anyone telling me, I knew she was meeting her great-great-grandfather, who had died centuries before. They both cried and laughed at the same time, a perfect mixture of love, and my family. Jesus? I asked, feeling my heart tighten. Daniel, Marina, Pedrino. He looked at me with that look that mixed tenderness and power. They will be here when the time comes. Your love will be even stronger and purer, and you will have millions of other people to love too. Love here doesn't divide, it multiplies. The scene changed again. Now we were on another hill, and below stretched a bright, vibrant, pulsating city. The buildings seemed made of solid light, too beautiful to be just constructions, and there were people everywhere creating impossible things. Here you are, builders, he said, but not just of houses, of worlds. You will create mountains that sing, rivers that paint pictures as they run, forests where each tree tells a story. Everything that love imagines you can create. I saw a group working together to build a bridge of pure light. They molded the light with their hands, as if it were clay, and when they finished, the bridge formed its own rainbow as people crossed it. Can we do that? I asked, fascinated. Everything moved by love here is possible. Matter obeys the loving heart. And then the last place, a silent field covered in soft grass and small flowers. Some people were alone, others in groups, all at peace. They did nothing, they just existed. And here you rest. It's not sleep, it's peace. It's being exactly where they should be, doing what they were created to do, without fear of it ending. I sat on the grass and felt the deepest calm of my life. No thoughts, no worries, all the tension of years, bills, pains, guilt, demands, simply disappeared for the first time. I truly rested. That's what true rest is, right? I asked. Jesus sat beside me and answered, rest is being at peace with who you are. Here, no one needs to prove anything, only to love. We stayed there for what seemed like hours, although time no longer made sense. But then something changed in his gaze, a mixture of deep love and a touch of sadness. You need to come back, Helena. The word pierced me like lightning. No. I screamed, please, don't send me back. It's so beautiful, so light. There I only suffer. I don't want to go back to the pain, to the tiredness, to the fear of failing as a mother. Jesus took my hand again. His children still need you, Daniel too, and there are people who need to hear what you saw here. Your work on earth is not yet finished. I looked at him crying, but I am not strong enough. You will not be in this line. Everything you saw here, the joy, the peace, the beauty, will go with you. When you are tired, remember the resting field. When you sing for your children, remember the celestial choir. When you take care of your garden, listen to the flowers. Heaven fits inside you. Before I could answer, everything began to disappear, the field, the light, the sound, even his presence. Everything became distant, as if I were being pulled back too fast. The last thing I heard was Jesus' voice, saying very softly, this isn't goodbye, Helena, it's just see you later. And then the silence turned to pain, a brutal pain in my chest, ribs, throat, very bright lights. The sound of sirens, hurried voices. I tried to move my arm, but it was as if my body weighed a ton. She came back. Someone shouted, do you have a pulse? I opened my eyes with difficulty. The white ceiling was shaking. I was inside an ambulance and a sweaty paramedic looked at me with a relieved smile. Helena, can you hear me? You were without a heartbeat for 11 minutes, but you're back, you know? Everything will be all right. 11 minutes dead, but I swear I lived an eternity. When I arrived at the hospital, the doctors didn't know what to say. I had a massive heart attack, the kind they call a wife killer, the famous widowmaker. They said that even if someone survives, they almost always come back with serious brain damage, but my tests were perfect, no damage, no explanation. The cardiologist looked at the results, shaking his head. Helena, honestly, this is a miracle. From what I saw, you shouldn't even be talking to me now, but I knew why, and I knew who brought me back. In the following days, between tests, visits, and that strange tiredness of someone who was born again, I began to realize that everything had changed, not outside of me, but inside. Life was still the same, money was still tight, Daniel still came home exhausted from work with back pain, Marina still got irritated with math, Pedro still scattered toys around the house, but I wasn't the same anymore. Before, every problem seemed like the end of the world. Now, every little moment seemed like a miracle in disguise. When I tended to my little garden in the backyard, I remembered the celestial garden and thought I heard the flowers singing, a soft sound, almost a whisper. When Pedro asked me to sing to him to help him fall asleep, I remembered the choir of heaven and let my voice out without fear, and even when I was out of tune, I smiled, because I knew that up there every note is perfect. Sometimes, in the middle of the rush, I closed my eyes and returned to the field of rest. I felt the grass on me, the sun that didn't burn, the wind that didn't hurt, and suddenly peace returned, a peace that the world doesn't understand. I started telling what happened, first to Daniel, who listened silently with teary eyes, then to my children and then to whoever wanted to listen. Not everyone believed. Some said it was just a hallucination due to lack of oxygen. Others were moved, asking me to tell it again. But, honestly, it doesn't matter who believes, because I know what I saw. Jesus was there, heaven is real, but the most beautiful thing is that it's also here among us, in the small things, in simple joys, in the love we give, without expecting anything in return. I discovered that heaven is not a distant place. It begins now when we do something with love. When you create something beautiful, it's a little piece of heaven. When you learn something new and feel your heart open, it's heaven touching you. When you love someone, even if it hurts, it's heaven manifesting. When you find peace amidst chaos, it's heaven drawing closer. The world remains chaotic. There are still bills to pay, lines, traffic, bad news. But now, every time I take a deep breath and remember that light, I think, heaven hasn't ended, it's only just begun. The first time I returned to church after the heart attack, the pastor called me to give my testimony. I went up to the pulpit with trembling hands, my heart racing, but not from fear, but from gratitude. I told everything, the supermarket, the light, the garden, the choir, the hands of Jesus, and in the end I said, heaven is the most beautiful place that exists. But the most incredible thing is that you don't need to die to start feeling it. It begins every time you choose to love, forgive, create, rest. Every time you do good, even tired. Heaven is love in action. When I finished, the whole church fell silent. You could even hear the sound of the wind hitting the windows, and then a lady in the back started to cry and people kept crying. It was as if a little piece of that golden light had descended inside. In the following months, I started visiting hospitals, talking to people who were afraid of death. Some looked at me with suspicion, but all I had to do was look into their eyes and to say, "Don't be afraid, love is stronger than death," and somehow the people calmed down. Life didn't become perfect. There are still days when I cry, when I feel weak, when the longing for that place is so intense it feels physical. But in those moments I close my eyes and remember the promise, "You will return, Helena, when your true work on earth is finished. I will be the waiting." This is not to God, it's just see you later, and that's enough. Today, every time the sun rises and the sky takes on that golden hue that seems alive, I remember him. Sometimes, in the noise of the city, I swear I hear a distant choir, and when Pedrino runs to hug me, I think, that's it, that's what he wanted me to feel. His begins here. So, if you're reading this and you feel afraid of death, of the future, of pain, I want to tell you something I learned in a way I'll never forget. Heaven is real, but it's also now. It's hidden in the little things, in a smile, in a song, in a flower, in a gesture of love, and every time we choose to live with love, we bring a little piece of it to earth. One day, when all this is over, when our time is finished, the light will come to take each one of us and we will understand that we were never alone, that pain was never the end. That love was always the beginning, and when I go back there, because I know I will, I want to find that same garden, that same field, that same voice saying my name, and I will smile, maybe crying again and say, "I returned, Jesus, and I brought with me as much heaven as I could spread." Tack.